This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Two here, Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy Buonantony and Jonathan Von Tobel with you. Still to come this hour on the show, we're going to break down the NFL Week 3 slate from the lens of Survivor contests and Circa Millions. Which teams do we trust? Which do we want to stay away from this weekend? We've also got our weekly edition of West Coast Bias, giving some love to the West Coast college football games that don't get enough love or the pub that they deserve. But I guess we will start here by serving the masses, talking about some big brands as ESPN's Kris Budden joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line Reporter host. Some of the biggest college football games every week she is on the sideline for. Can also catch her on SiriusXM College Sports Radio Channel 84. Kris, thank you for joining us. You were in the thick of it, in the chaos with Georgia Tech upsetting Clemson this past week. First of all, glad you made it out alive. Second of all, what did you leave the game thinking about Clemson, especially with all of the national championship talk that was around this team in the offseason? Now they're 1-2 to start the year.
Yeah, I'm glad I made it out safe. You've been in plenty of them. You feel fine going in and running and getting the coach, and then you do the interview, and then you say congratulations, and then all of a sudden you turn around to leave the field, and you're like, how am I getting out of here? I am now immediately like anxiety level. Where's my security? Like we got to part the Red Sea and figure out how to get out of here. I think my takeaway from Clemson, which is interesting because I will have them this week as well, was last week there didn't seem to be any panic mode heading into the game. There had been a lot of discussion about what is wrong with the offense. Dabo had compared them to 2016. And what that team did, and that they were drinking their own rat poison. And this was a Clemson team that hadn't done that. It was also, for Cade Klubnik, their quarterback, hadn't been living up to the hype that we had kind of thought in year 3 for him that he would have. And even Dabo compared his numbers to 2016 when Deshaun Watson was there. And Deshaun had worse numbers through 2 games than Cade did. So it was kind of like this optimism of, the talent that we have, we can still put this together. The difference is on that 2016 team that won the national championship, Deshaun played at Heisman levels. Like he was the reason in shootouts like against Louisville that they won and ends up second in the Heisman race. And Cade hasn't put that together. They do have some injuries. Their top wide receivers out. They had 2 O-linemen out. So there have been issues, but for whatever reason, they just haven't been able to move the ball like we thought that they would. And then defensively, we compared it a little bit to Florida State last year, where you have these guys on the defensive line, and 2 of them that are projected to be top first-round picks. So the talent's there, but they're not playing like it cohesively as a unit. And they're improved from last year, but I just also think that we overthought them this year. Like this was a defense that was last in the ACC in rush defense. How much was that going to really improve over an off season? And it's gotten better. But now you're starting to sense, based on Dabo's remarks this week, that there is some panic going on in Clemson. Listen, they could still make the ACC title game, win the ACC, and end up in. But they're going to have to get remarkably better, particularly on the offensive side.
Yeah, you mentioned the mentality here. I mean, are we sure that Dabo's up to it? He had this weird thing where he's telling them if they want to get rid of me, they can get rid of me, and I'm 55, and I got plenty. It was just he seems overtly sensitive and maybe really not focused, Kris, on the most important things, which is developing this team.
I wouldn't say that. I think what you learn from Dabo is he's a forever optimist and doesn't like it when people criticize his team and will always stand up for his team. And I think that there's a little bit of, to the fan base, are you a spoiled fan base because of what we have given you, that yes, things haven't started off the way that we want, but everyone needs to pump the brakes a little bit. We lost 2 games last year and we're still in the playoffs. Like there is still a path. It's not like I forgot what I was doing from last year. Now, Dabo does have a certain type of the way that he wants to build his program, and that is not out of the transfer portal. He's been very vocal about that. And while he has taken a few, like a handful over the last couple of years, and with very particular intent, I think that the fan base that he's talking about, that he might think is spoiled, that fan base is thinking, we don't understand why you don't want to get on board with what the rest of college football is doing to make the team better. So we will see what that means against Syracuse. Now, I don't think that Clemson's losing that one, and they'll still be favored in a bunch of their games. I also think you have to give credit where credit is due to Georgia Tech and where Brent Key has gotten this team. And Stormy, we're in meetings all the time, and I left that meeting for Georgia Tech and Brent Key and walked out and was like, oh, they're winning this game. He had me convinced, he had all of us convinced, and he was convinced they are winning this game, and it will not be an underdog story. It is not, in our eyes, considered an upset. So I think also, for as much as that was a shock to the nation because of maybe people's perception of Georgia Tech, it's also a very hard offense to compete against with what they do with Haynes King. And I think that we will see at the end of the year that really a 64-yard field goal loss to a Georgia Tech team isn't really that bad of a loss.
ESPN's Kris Budden joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. And as she mentioned, she'll be on the call for Clemson-Syracuse this week, noon Eastern on ESPN with Bob Wischusen and Louis Riddick. Let's go to the Georgia Tech side of this then, because you mentioned the confidence that Brent Key and that group had going into the game. Does it carry over now, especially looking at the remaining schedule they have? Could they be a true contender in the ACC?
Yeah, so they will be favored now, likely, in every game that they play up until a good old-fashioned hate game against Georgia the last week of the season. They have a fairly easy ACC schedule. They skip Miami. They skip Florida State. So, yes, they can win out the rest of the way, end up in the ACC title game. I think what will be interesting to see is we were on the sidelines last year when they beat Miami and they rushed the field. Brent Key has an amazing way of getting his players to play up for big games. They'll have Temple this week. What does that – in the past, they've won the big ones, and then there'll be a letdown in the middle of the season. He has done some things where he has a way that the messaging is, one of the things was we're not an underdog. We've proven we belong in the fight. The other thing is, during the week, they don't call the opponent by the team name. They're not Clemson. They're not the Tigers. They're not Temple. It's they. You're playing the opponent, not the team or the brand. So I do think that the things that he's learned, and he kind of went through this whole thing with a mentor over the offseason to kind of change who he is and how he speaks and all of this, that hopefully that will get this team to a point where they don't just win the big ones and let an accidental slide to Temple or who else. And he said it after the game in the locker room. He goes, now this makes the next one even bigger. Because now when your aspirations and the potential of being in the playoffs, you can't just beat Clemson. You have to win the rest of them and not have bad losses along the way to a North Carolina or whoever is down the rest of the stretch.
We have to ask you about K-State. It has been a point of contention on this show. Big Avery Johnson fan to my right now in Stormy Buonantony. So just in your opinion, Kris, what's gone on with this team?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, people need to stop agreeing to go to Ireland maybe. People that come out with a loss after those Ireland games, things don't go very well. I don't know. I'm a huge Avery Johnson fan too, and I am a ginormous Chris Kleiman fan. And I wonder if looking back, I've had several conversations with Coach Kleiman about choosing not to do the bye after Ireland, and he had taken a lot of advice from other coaches that have been of what's the best metric, and they said really for your body, it's just to get back in a routine. And I do wonder if the best thing for them would have been after the loss, just had a week to reset, because we had that game against Army, and honestly, I don't know why anyone would ever schedule a non-conference triple option team in the middle of the season. You go to Ireland, then you play again, and now you got to spend a week preparing for a triple option team. That game was unbelievable. There was a point in the fourth quarter where in the second half, Army had run 42 plays and Kansas State had run 4. That's not really what you want to do during week 2 or week 3. And I think for them, Dylan Edwards was injured. But I also think they're asking a lot of Avery Johnson and the pieces around him, and it can't just be on him. And I'm so worried because I love what he means for college football, because he stayed when he could have gone. I remember when the Tennessee job opened up, when Nico immediately left, his name was up for it, and he immediately goes into coach's office and says, I'm not leaving. But I do wonder, if he has another year of eligibility, would he want to go someplace else just to be able to showcase his skills for the next level? And if K-State doesn't turn it around, like, I can't see him wanting to stay with what he could do to impress people and some NFL scouts.
Crazy from Heisman hopeful going into last year and this year to a 1-3 start, the numbers not being there. Kris, before we let you go, we've only got about a minute left, but you are Mizzou made, and Bo Pribula has been such a great story for MIZ this year. They're taking on South Carolina this week. Do you like them? Do you like your boys?
Oh, I do. I mean, they take on South Carolina. We don't know what the deal is with Lenora Sellers. We had them week 1 against Virginia Tech, which they skated by. The offense after the first touchdown drive was really lackluster. I can't pinpoint what is going on with the offense with Lenora Sellers or without. So, yeah, whether and now you look at what Virginia Tech is and you think that game probably shouldn't have been as close as it was. And I will say, thank you to everyone who brought back Mizzou KU, because you do this job long enough and you lose a little bit of your fandom. And watching that game 2 weeks ago, it brought back the Mizzou fan in me that, that's the last game that I saw as a fan in 2006 was Mizzou KU. And so that reignited, me pulling out all my old Mizzou gear and wanting to be a fan on Saturdays.
Kris, you put salt in the wound for two people that liked Kansas plus 6.5 that day. So thanks for that. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Have a great call this weekend.
Yep. Thanks, guys.
Kris Budden, everybody. Follow her on X at Kris Budden. Again, on the call, Clemson, Syracuse, noon Eastern on ESPN coming up Saturday with Bob Wischusen and Louis Riddick. Clemson laying 17.5 in that game. Total 55.5. Missouri, as we were just talking about, 10-point home favorites against the Gamecocks. We will be right back, shifting gears to Circa Survivor and contest talk after this.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All right, going to talk a little Circa Survivor, Circa Millions, which teams we trust this weekend, which one we don't, which teams we want to bet on the spread, which teams we don't. Get into that also in 15 minutes. West Coast bias, some under-the-radar West Coast games that need a little bit more love, and best bets at the end of the hour. Did want to check in with some of the folks that are tweeting at us here on social media, and please always join in the conversation at Storm Buonantony, at me, JVT, at VSiN Live. Our boy Dustin Sweetelson. If Daniel Jones wins Comeback Player of the Year after I lost my retirement on Sam Darnold last year, I'll make January 6th look like a cuddle session.
I think he's right in that you're crazy. If you are crazy, I'm directly pointing the finger at you. You are crazy if you think he's going to win this award.
I'm not saying he's going to win this award.
Okay, let me rephrase.
My point being,
you are crazy if you think he has a chance to win this award.
I think he has a chance to win this award.
He has no shot.
I think that people who vote on these awards can be a little sus. No? They were given a directive for 1 year, and then I would not be surprised to see them move off of it.
Do you remember how the vote went down last year?
I'm assuming you asked the question because you recall.
Yes.
Wasn't he third in the voting?
Yes.
Yes.
Who finished second?
You said J.K. Dobbins.
J.K. freaking Dobbins. Sam Darnold, they cannot,
but
they will not. But that was
because it was specifically emphasized last year after Joe Flacco beat out DeMar Hamlin.
It was a
specific emphasis.
I am telling you, he has no shot.
I don't know.
And I agree with Dustin. If Sam Darnold, because here's the other part about this. If Sam Darnold, coming back from the exact same situation that Daniel Jones is coming back from, leads the Vikings to 14 bleeping wins last year, and is in the final game of the regular season, starting that contest with a shot to be the 1 seed in the NFC. And he not only finishes third, but only gets 7 first-place votes, finishes 100 points behind the second-place vote getter. There is no chance in hell that Daniel Jones on a 10-win Colts team that could only maybe be a wild card would get this award.
So you think they're only going to win 10 games?
No, I'm saying they could be in that range. That is the most likely outcome of a perfect Colts season, I think.
But I'm just saying, let's say they have a masterful season. His numbers are insane. I'm not telling anyone to go to the books and waste their money throwing it on Daniel Jones 7-1 for Comeback Player of the Year. That's not what the argument is. I am just saying that people that vote on these awards do dumb stuff, and we have seen it a lot. So that's all I'm saying. Christian McCaffrey is also your favorite in this market as well, plus 180. An extremely short number for a guy who knows how many games he's going to play this year.
I hope the betting market listens to you and makes Daniel Jones the favorite at one point.
That's
so
not
we can
what
bet.
I'm saying.
No, what I'm saying is I'm not saying they explicitly follow your advice. What I'm saying is I hope those that shape the market are foolish enough to stockpile Daniel Jones tickets.
So you can get better numbers on other people.
So we can get better numbers on everybody else.
I'm game for it.
Because he's not winning the award.
Also, James Fessler checking in said, appreciate these weekly sideline reporter spots on money moves. Always having great insight before the weekend, especially when it comes from a member of the Mizzou Mafia. Yes, shout out Kris Budden. We've been trying to incorporate more of these ESPN sideline reporters that I know well throughout the course of the show. We'll get some play-by-play and analysts on as well throughout the course of the football season. But you want to tweet at us again, at MeJVT, at VSiN Live, at Storm Buonantony. Let's get into a little Survivor discussion, because whether you're in Circa Survivor here, where we're broadcasting from at Circa Resort and Casino, you're in a Survivor pool across the country, you do weekly stuff, it is a worthwhile conversation every week. We have talked a lot about the lack of carnage and the lack of these big favorites getting knocked out.
Almost had it.
Almost had what?
But the carnage.
We were so close, yes.
We were sitting
Dallas
here with Derek.
Cowboys.
I called my shot with Derek, sitting here. I said, this is the week. Looked like the Cowboys were going to lose. Looked like the Panthers could come back. Ugh. But if only we could be so lucky and get a good chunk of this field knocked out.
So when you were watching, obviously you had a Carolina +7 ticket in hand anyways. When they were mounting the comeback in the second half, were you thinking, did any part of you think they could finish the job?
Oh, yeah, of course. With the way that game was getting officiated, because then we had, I believe that was called on the hit on Bryce Young, if I remember correctly, right? The roughing the passer. Mm-hmm. That was a ridiculous call. The second that was made, I was like, "Oh, we're destined.
Things are swinging.
We are destined.
It's happening.
They are driving downfield. I was about to bust out the largest sharp teeth and claws in the middle of the Westgate Superbook you've ever heard. That was ridiculous that we could not get that done."
Last year, after 2 weeks, 72.8% of the field was eliminated. This year, entering this week, we were just about 9%. There are 16,965 of the initial 1,718 remaining. So your $1,000 entry is now worth just over $1,100.
We could sell it and split. We could do that too.
The Cardinals were the top pick, so 5,169 in the balance. The Ravens, who we were on this past week, was a no sweat. The Cowboys, 3,506. So there was a point where 8,600 entries were in the balance, but all of them came through. So looking to this week, where do we go? The biggest favorite on the board is the Buffalo Bills on Thursday night, hosting the Miami Dolphins. The Packers are more than a touchdown favorite on the road at the Browns. The Jets and Saints, touchdown or over a touchdown favorites. And then the Falcons laying 5.5 at the Panthers. But you've said the Panthers are a team you think is plucky. You think the Jets could create a little bit more of a tough task for the Bucs. Where did your mind first go when you looked at this week of teams you wanted for consideration?
I think we should first rule out, if we can, the two big favorites, Buffalo and Green Bay. You do have opportunities for both teams down the stretch. Obviously, for Buffalo, the next 3 weeks, and really just a litany of opportunities for Buffalo. Next 3 weeks are home against Miami, home against New Orleans, home against New England. Those are going to be perfectly fine opportunities where if you want to use any single one of them, it's going to make a lot of sense. Buffalo does not play on either Christmas or Thanksgiving. So I would say you save them for maybe next week for New Orleans. Get the extra week between Thursday and Sunday, all this sort of thing. So I'll just throw that out there for next week if we're still alive. I think Buffalo might be worth using. It'll probably be the most selected team. For Green Bay, that's one where you potentially want to save them only because they will be playing on Thanksgiving against the Detroit Lions. It will be a road game, so it's not the most opportune situation. And then you could
I was going to say, that's not a team that I'm, saving for
like Green Bay?
A week, in my mind at least.
No, I'm with you. I think you just want a couple bullets in the gun in case we get there. And the Eagles, who I think we're both looking at for that Black Friday, are just trashed by injuries. We have no idea what they're going to be and all that kind of stuff. You want to save a couple. So that's just thrown out there at the very least. It's going to be a team that's involved.
I will be very unhappy if we have to use the Green Bay Packers that week.
I mean, but who knows? Maybe the Lions are falling apart with injury. Who knows what's going to happen by that point of the season? I asked this to Adam Burke. I think we asked this on the air, off the air. Number one team this week, I think, is going to be Seattle. I don't think there's any question about it. 2 straight home.
I really like Seattle this week, so I get it.
And that's the thing. So that's really the question is where you start, which is, okay, for Seattle, again, going against the New Orleans Saints. If we're using the Seahawks, if you're looking at the Seahawks, as we always ask the question when you're talking about these survivor teams, where else would you use the Seattle Seahawks on the schedule? And I would say probably not another time. The biggest argument you can make to use them again are twofold. It's Week 10 at home against Arizona, or it's Week 12 on the road against Tennessee And that's if Tennessee is god-awful and Cam Ward's not any good.
And that's a road game
Yep.
that you're hoping you even get the opportunity by making it to Week 12 to be there in the first place.
Correct. So it will be the number one picked team, but I think there's a strong argument to be made that that is the team that should be selected this week. 7.5-point favorites at home against a team traveling for the first time that's arguably the worst in the NFL.
And to what you're saying about next week with the Buffalo Bills, it's this fade the Saints train seems completely reasonable.
It does, especially when I think, again, as somebody who has reiterated 1,000 times, I don't think home field is really worth that much. But playing against them, like we got away with one playing against them on the road. They were plucky at home against your 49ers, although never really in danger of winning that game. They did have the ball with the chance to take a lead and win the game. But in these spots where I think it's going to be more difficult, especially this cross-country trip to go to Seattle, can make the argument there. And then, of course, Buffalo. To me, it's not about playing them at home. It's about Buffalo coming off of the mini-bye. Playing on a Thursday, then boom, you get extra time to get ready, rested, and ready to go for a lowly opponent like the New Orleans Saints. So then outside of that, then that's where you get a little frisky and you're looking around and saying,
You
okay,
want to look at some of these short favorites that scare me. You want to look at the Washington Commanders. You want to look at the Minnesota Vikings.
I just threw those out there as considerations. I think that you can make the argument for either one of them. Washington specifically is interesting, although I did local radio today, and I was given a nifty stat where I believe Pete Carroll in his career, I'll send a text to get this, but this is ballparking it. Traveling from west to east in his career is like 25-11. Now, he's had good Seahawks teams, so that might not be Pete Carroll knows how to handle East Coast travel. It's more like, hey, you had some really
Russell
good teams.
Wilson in his prime.
Yeah, you had the Legion of Boom. Correct. So, it might not be all of that. But, I don't think this Raiders team is particularly great. This offensive line isn't good. We saw how poor Geno Smith is. By the way, Geno Smith on the road, outside, all those narratives that are out there.
Can Washington's defense get as many hands-on footballs as they did this past week for the Chargers? That was crazy.
And that's the question of, is that a symptom of the Chargers DBs being that good, or are these Raiders wide receivers unable to get separation? But either way, I do think that you can make a strong argument for the short favorites of Minnesota and Washington. We could bring up Kansas City, laying 6 on the road against the New York Giants as a survivor option as well. But again, Kansas City, one of the teams that's playing both on Thanksgiving and on Christmas.
Sure, and while it would be hard to imagine them starting a season 0-3, honestly, especially given the recent history they've had, just seems wild. But the Giants are a team that I don't know what to do with. I said that earlier this week on Monday, that they seem hard to account for what they're going to do or what they're going to be. So I don't know if I want to take that risk, even with them being a 6-point favorite in that spot. Oh, more Survivor throughout the week. But for now, West Coast bias next.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Every week, we're naming winners. This week's Average Joe contest winner, Margaret Arana. It was a tough week at the top 10 contestants, went a perfect 7-0. Remember, tiebreakers come down to your best bet of the week, followed by your best NFL record that week. The contest is free to enter. And every week, you can win cash prizes plus quarterly prizes like a trip to Vegas with a Circa Resort stay and even a guest appearance right here on a VSiN show. Enter anytime this season at vsin.com/Joe. That's VSIN.com/Joe. Congrats, Margaret. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you back here on Money Moves, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Time for West Coast Bias, the world-renowned segment, getting a little love as it deserves for some West Coast teams that maybe don't get enough pub.
You're leaking confidence at the end of this.
We don't. We talked a lot yesterday about Texas Tech, Utah. If you want that full breakdown, remember Money Moves is always available in podcast form wherever you get your podcasts. We hit it in the second segment of hour 2 yesterday. If you want to go back and get that, we'll talk about it as well later this week.
I'm going to say right now, I'm a little disappointed in you that you included that in the rundown as I was looking through it as a potential candidate for West Coast bias. Those are not the games that we're here for.
It's not. I totally agree. But I just wanted to make sure. It's the Big 12 doesn't get the love it deserves, in my opinion, as well. I think it's a very great, fun, exciting league.
This is for the little guy.
So we have to start with the Stormy Bowl,
Don't you dare throw up that graphic. Don't you dare throw that game board up. I don't want to see it.
We have to start with the Stormy Bowl, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Somebody pulled that on a program.
As it has been dubbed from JVT, the Stormy Bowl.
Yep.
Cal at San Diego State. My alma mater, the Aztecs, taking on the team that I have covered for ESPN of the first 3 weeks of the season in Cal.
List.
This number was as high as 13.5. And I agree with the market move here going the other way, thinking that was too much. We're sitting at largely 12.5, 12. And at 12 or better, I like the Cal Golden Bears here. I am very curious your opinion because I've heard it has changed.
It's not that it's changed, that it's cool. Like, if you were to tell me right now, I want you to pick this game, it would still be San Diego State. I still believe that this is a massive role reversal for a team that closed as an underdog. Or actually, no, they closed as a short favorite against Oregon State, if I remember correctly. And then closed as an underdog at home against Minnesota. I understand the love. I mean, as I call this, the Stormy Bowl, you've been on the sideline for 2 of their games. We've covered them extensively. Jaron Cave-Sangapulatelli has been a really good story in college football. He's awesome. So I understand everything that has gotten to this point. But going through some more of it, I've definitely cooled on, all right, I could see a scenario in which I'm watching on Saturday night, and I'm like, why did I do this? So one of the things that has really stuck out, like out of everything in going through some of the numbers, it's whether or not your boys at San Diego State can protect Jaden Denegal. Because you look at some of the numbers for this offensive line, it has not been good. Denegal's been pressured on nearly 40% of his dropbacks. That's abysmal. Cal, for the season, is 5 sacks, 59 total pressures amongst their players. They have 2 really good bookend rushers, as you would probably know off the top of your head, Ryan McCullough and TJ Bush, who have been great. And so if this has been an issue for San Diego State against the likes of Stony Brook and Washington State, Cal with Justin Wilcox, I feel like that's going to be a really big problem in terms of protecting your guy. If that's going to be the problem, if they can't throw the ball, okay, can they run it? Well, it's a Cal front that's given up less than 3 yards per carry on the season, and this is a San Diego State team that is averaging less than 4 yards per carry on the year. So I don't even know if they're really going to be able to run it. I think there's something to be said of like, hey, is JKS really deserving of all of this? But you look at the numbers, they're pretty tight across the board, and that he's been absolutely great. You look through all of this, and I can just picture taking 12.5 and watching this team in a low-scoring game get its teeth kicked in, and I couldn't really get there. Again, I think we've come a little far. What did Adam tell us yesterday? He said he was 18? On his power ratings, like that was Adam Burke, our managing editor. And I don't necessarily disagree with the big upgrade, but you know how I operate. I think at this point, I'm always kind of looking for those buy low, sell highs, and this seems like one of those spots to potentially grab one here. And the last point on this, you do have the rest advantage. You were off last week. You played Wazoo. You got you got your face kicked in there. Get some time to get ready for this opponent. That is an advantage for them over at Snapdragon.
What I was going to tell you is my points for your argument on San Diego State was coming out of the bye, rest advantage, playing at home, and the fact that Cal has had a rotating offensive line. They had 3 different offensive line combinations the first 3 weeks. They really haven't gotten comfortable with what that unit is. They played well, but what are you pointing out?
No, I didn't want to forget it. I'm saying you don't have to stop. But to your point, I'm just going to. JKS has only been pressured on 25% of his dropbacks. Only been sacked 4 times. Like, so even if you're saying that's a weakness, it
still hasn't been bad.
Yeah.
I look at Jaron Cave-Sangapulatelli and think about what he did week 1, true freshman on the road at Oregon State, and how awesome he performed. That number could have been much bigger had a couple guys caught passes from him, like a couple deep shots that were right in the hands of wide receivers that didn't go there. I know Oregon State's not something to write home about, but then we look at this past week where they take on a Minnesota team that everybody said, okay, now you're facing a real defense. Now you're facing guys that are bigger and more athletic than you. What are you going to do? And they go out and have another double-digit win. So everything that you said, I agree with. I like Cal at 12 or a better number. I have no problem laying the points in that spot, and I think it's the right side. I do not trust the San Diego State Aztec team. Great, they had a blowout at Stony Brook. You should. But if we are looking at anything about what that game at Washington State did for them, it is embarrassing, especially with what we saw from Washington State this past week against North Texas. We got to hit more games here. So let's. One more thing. Cal season win total opened 5.5. We told you after week 1 to get in on the over 6.5. It's now 7.5. I still like that over. They're 3-0 right now. Going to be 4-0. You only need 4 more with this remaining schedule. At BC, a team that just lost by double digits to Stanford. Against Duke, I'd call a toss-up. North Carolina, hosting UNC after a bye in play. At Virginia Tech, intimidating entrance to the stadium, not an intimidating team. Virginia, Louisville, Stanford, SMU. I see 8 wins there. Okay, which one do you want to hit next?
All right, let's go to what do I have here? USC and Michigan State's pretty interesting. So, obviously, USC, 18.5-point favorite on Saturday night.
Late body clock game for the Spartans here.
So, yeah, I wanted to bring that up because there was a lot of, whining about that. I think it was NBC sent out like a graphic of like, late night start, 8 p.m. And everybody's, yeah, it's 11 o'clock. This is so unfair. So, like, this is going to be a late one. I think that does factor into what we're going to see potentially for some of these athletes. But I wanted to note a couple of injuries here, too. Nick Marsh, wide receiver from Michigan State, and running back Mekhi Frazier, both TBD. So that's going to be pretty big for the Spartans, whether or not they're going to be available. And then today we got official word that USC, which is already dealing with a lot of injuries in the secondary, Chasen Johnson, their starting corner, done for the year with a knee injury. So those are some really key factors. And especially with Johnson going down, Aiden Childs has played a little bit better here when you look at the way that he has been performing for this offense. It's a really big number. I understand the negative situation for Michigan State, but as we talked about last week, if you looked at the numbers for USC heading into that game against Purdue, they had quietly, being masked by some big blowouts, they've been quietly giving up some explosive plays through the air to some of their opponents. You saw some of that again against Purdue in a weird lightning delay, whatever it was, sort of game. And now here we have a Michigan State offense that, especially if Marsh is going to be available, that I think you're going to be able to generate some explosives and stay inside of a big number. I just don't know if I'm at there with this USC team where I'm comfortable laying some of these big numbers against, we'll call them competent competition. Purdue looked like that. They're pretty competent, really never fell outside of that number. And I think there's a chance that Michigan State might be pretty live to stay inside of this number, despite the negative spot considering the late body clocks. I
agree. We did well on that handicap last week overall. We'll see this week. 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 Eastern on Fox.
By the way, Jaden Maiava did not play. I mean, he didn't play well in that game either. He looked like old Jaden Maiava, committed 3 turnover-worthy plays. Like, there were some explosives, but it looked like,
I think that's what you're going to get with him. Those things are going to creep up every now and then, especially against, as you verbalized, more competent competition. But I think overall we have seen the overarching change that you were looking for.
Yeah.
So we'll keep that in mind. You said earlier you're excited about Fresno State, Hawaii. This is a 6 p.m. Island time, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. Watch it on the Mountain West Network, on the Mountain West app, or Spectrum Sportsnet, Scripps Sports stations in certain markets as well. What do you like here?
What time are you going to be done? You think you'll be able to?
I'm going to catch a little bit.
Hell yeah.
I should catch a little bit.
This is great. So Fresno State, first off, I would say probably negative situation again, making the long travel to go play Hawaii. So that's probably factored into this. But this Fresno State offense, specifically on the ground, has been great. 5.6 yards per carry, 6.4 yards per rush. And remember, this is all part of a body of work that includes getting their asses kicked by Kansas, where they did nothing in that game. So the last 3 weeks for their ground game, they have been downright dominant. And you do wonder how that works against Hawaii, who has played relatively well against the run. But if you look at some of the other deeper metrics, 113th in EPA per rush allowed, 75th in success rate. So maybe this is going to be something where Fresno can come in and get the job done. The two things I have, the questions, are all about the quarterbacks. Alajado's back, but even in the 2 games that we saw, hasn't looked like particularly dynamic. Even in the Stanford game, wasn't really great. And then we know what they did to him in Arizona. The other side is E.J. Warner has stunk. He has just been covered up by the fact that this running game for Fresno has been very, very good. I think it tells you, right, if you respect the market, there's a reason why this is off of that 3. I feel like if I get 3, with Alejado with 2 weeks to prepare, get ready, rest his body, I think that, to me, it would be Hawaii be pretty live on the island at home against the Bulldogs here.
2.5 the spread there, total 47.5. And from a game where you've got questions about the quarterback to one that I want to hit in this next segment of quarterbacks that are 2 really exciting guys in Sawyer Robertson and Sam Leavitt. While Texas Tech Utah is getting all of the pub for the Big 12 game of the week, I think this Baylor ASU game is sneaky huge. We'll get into that and our best bets of the day coming up after this on Money Moves.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The NFL is rolling. And with that, every game brings new opportunities to cash in, but you need the right insights. And with VSiN Pro, we've got you covered. You get real-time DraftKings and Circa betting splits, so you know where the public and sharps are putting their money. Pair that with a daily email that recaps all the best bets from our show hosts and guests. Non-stop live video on the VSiN Watch app and proven betting systems over at VSiN.com. You'll have All the tools to stay ahead each and every week. Start betting smarter today for just $9.99 or save 50% off with an annual plan. Visit vsin.com/subscribe. That's vsin.com/subscribe. We're wrapping up this Wednesday edition of the program. Stormy Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you.
I just got really excited.
About?
Because it just hit me. NHL training camps are starting up.
They are, yes. Very
That's
exciting
right.
stuff. I actually, I have to respond to him. I got a text from Jonathan Davis, our NHL betting expert here at the network, already talking through some season-long props. So the wheels have got to start turning.
So your NHL content that you will be providing for our show begins when?
I will have opening night stuff for you, and I will have a couple season-long props.
Opening night?
Yeah.
It's like a month away.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm not saying I'm going to get it to you on that day, which I will that day. But
Okay.
leading up, I'll give you some thoughts, initial thoughts.
All right. Well, I've got about 7 futures I want to throw at you tomorrow. So
I just received no, you do not. Tomorrow?
Yeah.
You were lying.
100%.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, okay. That seems a little overzealous on a day we have Thursday night football, but do you, boo-boo. What I did want to say is I just got an email from Amazon with a photo of some packages that were delivered to my house that is not my house. So I'm a little bit concerned about
Was the
what
house in
that
the picture
might be.
too ugly? You're like, my
No,
palatial estate does not look like that.
There's just a gigantic plant that is very obvious that is not I do not have a plant at all. I have rocks. We love those, the desert landscaping here. So I'm going to see how that goes. I don't know. I don't feel great about it. I was also today years old when I learned the proper pronunciation for the word of that tube in your inner ear. What's it called?
Well, I was going to say coccyx, but that's your tailbone, right?
Yes.
What was it?
Cochlea, you
Cochlea,
said.
there
You
we
told
go.
me. But I have never heard that in my life. I was looking up Merriam-Webster, though, and it says you can, I've only my whole life heard cochlear implant. Merriam-Webster says both are correct, but I don't think I've ever heard it say the way that you said it.
I mean, I'm right. That's all that really matters.
You bother me. Let's get into a little bit more college
I'm just
football.
still waiting. We're waiting for these WNBA awards to get announced. They just announced that Natalia Nakase was named as Coach of the Year, the Golden State Valkyries.
Paige Beckers last night.
Yeah,
Rookie of the Year.
I need an announcement, WNBA, that Nafisa Collier has won MVP. I won't go Dustin levels of being upset, but I will not be happy.
Were you not happy about what happened with the Aces last night?
I don't really care. I will say
it 18? It was about to be the longest streak in WNBA history.
They were about to go they were going for their 18th straight victory. They were up by about 12 in the beginning of the fourth quarter, somewhere near the beginning of the fourth quarter. But some incredible shot making, 3-point makes for the Storm that ultimately get them the win. And now I think they're around an 8-point favorite against Seattle in Game 3. Don't quote me on that. I think that's where they opened. So we'll see if they can close this out. But many thought, rightfully so, having won 16 games heading into the WNBA postseason with the championship pedigree and the best player in the world, that they were going to be a very big threat. So to be upended by the Storm would be a very poor outcome for the Aces, obviously.
8-point favorites, you are correct. Yep. Total 159. These last couple of minutes, we'll keep it out in the West Coast to wrap up a couple more games we didn't get to in West Coast bias talking college football. ASU Baylor is a game I am pumped for.
Sneaky huge.
Sneaky huge. I think that's the proper way to put it. 4:40 Pacific, 7:40 Eastern on Fox. Both teams 2-1 with non-con losses to this point. Baylor lost their season opener to Auburn. ASU was down 17-0 in the first half to Mississippi State. Roars all the way back, takes their first lead with 30 seconds to go, and ends up losing that game. So in terms of Big 12 implications and two teams that are very much so trying to stay alive and claw their way into the conversation as a league contender, this game is big, and two really strong quarterbacks on both sides in Sawyer Robertson and Sam Leavitt.
I think it's just the nature of the Big 12. You look at the Big 12 schedule. Texas Tech, Utah, SMU, TCU, sneaky huge, right? The game that you just mentioned, West Virginia, Kansas, just to start a Big 12 play. But so I'll ask you, because you watched this Arizona State team on the road, and you watched that performance from this offense specifically, you watched Sam Leavitt. Did you think that was a Mississippi State thing, or do you think that is the beginning embers of what eventually is a burning fire of Arizona State struggling in true road spots?
I genuinely don't know, and it definitely rose concern in my mind because that first half was abysmal for Arizona State.
It was awful.
He looked brutal. He had 7 yards passing until the final drive of the half, and you're just thinking, what is going on here? I think that, and I'm curious if you agree, that he is obviously a very dynamic playmaker, but it's like he's trying to do too much constantly, it feels like. And for a team that's actually had some success running the ball, just like do that more. I know that was a huge question coming into the season with Cam Scatterbo going to the NFL, but they've been able to run the ball well. Lean on that a little bit more. I find another receiver not named Jordan Tyson. That's going to be important. He's got 100 more receiving yards than I believe the rest of that room combined at this point.
And we'll remind everybody again, it might not be the biggest. Like there might not be much signal there, but barely got by Texas State on the road last year, lost at Texas Tech, lost at an eventual 5-7 Cincinnati team. That was one of their losses last year, and that was arguably a better version of Arizona State. So that's why I'm curious, is we did see, and granted they're a college team, so I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world to say, we saw the worst version of this team when they were playing away from home. But it's just something worth filing away, considering some of the performances we saw away from home last year as well. I
mean, the way Auburn was able to run the ball on Baylor, if you actually try to utilize your backs here, like, see if you can give yourself an opportunity. I don't know. I feel like this is going to be an extremely back-and-forth game, so I stayed away from it. I think so, yes. How about UNLV at Miami of Ohio? We were talking about this in the break. Early morning game for the Rebels, 9 a.m. body clock, noon local time in Oxford, Ohio on ESPNU. What stands out to you?
So first off the situation, UNLV having to hit the road and then play an early game. Miami, Ohio has not looked overtly impressive outside of the true road spot against Wisconsin early in the season, which they were pretty plucky and obviously only lost 17-0. Look, this is a good situation for Miami. Not only are they catching this team early in the morning, it's also a game in which they are coming off of a bye week, so that's going to help them out as well. And I'm not sure if I'm there all the way with UNLV quite yet.
Even at such a short spread.
What do you mean?
At the 2.5.
I mean, I think if you get back to 3, then I think that's the play for this one. Look, you beat Idaho State. We've gone through all the results. I don't know if it's fair, but it's worth throwing out that you had UCLA in your building and you couldn't do what New Mexico did to them in LA. And that was a game in which if Calandria is not down by an inch when he turns the ball over, that has to be reviewed and called back. That's a defensive touchdown. It's a completely different game against UCLA. They could potentially lose that. I just don't know if I've seen this team be buttoned up enough to trust them to go to Miami, who we've seen some high-level competent play, get a 9 a.m. kick, and take care of business with conference play looming as well, although they do get a bye week coming up, and that's part of it too. I'm not there yet. I haven't seen things with this defense where everything's been strict and tight, and I think that they can be had, and this is going to be a tough spot for them against Miami. So to me, if you're getting 3, I don't know if it'll get back there, but it would be Miami, Ohio.
It is. I mean, they've looked better, of course, the last 2 games versus what we saw against Idaho State, but they still haven't looked, I think, to your point, the part that we expected them to. And maybe that takes a few weeks to get it figured out. But I think the comp you made with UCLA and New Mexico is very well taken. We got to wrap things up with our best bets like we always do here, presented by GBank, the official bank of VSiN. Remember, GBank is always built with sports bettors in mind. Right now, you can earn $50 in cashback rewards once you're approved and your account is open with a GBank Visa signature card, while most credit cards treat sportsbook and gaming transactions as cash advances, even when it's your own money. GBank treats them as regular purchases. That means no cash advance fees, saves you 3 to 5% on every deposit. Plus, you'll earn 1% cash back on all eligible sportsbook and gaming transactions, 2% cash back on anything else you buy. VSiN.com/GBank. That's VSIN.com/GBank. And you, my friend, have added a couple teasers to the account for week 3.
Yes, and a future as well that I forgot to put in there. We mentioned it already. But yes, 2 teasers that have been added for the NFL this week with the Seahawks as like the base leg there, teasing down the Seahawks and both of them to 1.5. Patriots plus 7.5 and Texans plus 7.5 for the other legs that were thrown in there. I thought the Patriots actually had a shot at going off as the favorite in this game. That could still happen. It's floating around 1.5. We got news today that Christian Rodriguez is coming back to practice, so that's a big deal for New England. And as we have discussed, I have made it a habit the first 2 weeks of playing against this Pittsburgh team, and I'm going to do it again once more here in the spot against New England, coming off of that big win. And then with Houston-Jacksonville, kind of what we're talking about, somewhat lowest total, 44.5, getting it up to that key number. I jumped the gun. I didn't think that we'd get this up to 2, but that's the case. So you can get up to 8 if you want on some of these teaser legs, but teased Houston up to 7.5. So those are the 2 teasers. And then the future that I mentioned, I did add Carson Swessinger at 18-1 to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, Cleveland Browns linebacker.
I know you don't like it, but I think the Bucs as a teaser leg is a pretty good one too. I feel like they get that win against the New York Jets this week.
I understand.
Just
I don't
my
like
2
it.
cents. No, but you think that the Jets can be plucky and make it a more competitive game.
I think in the context of 7, that is where.
Also, we mentioned earlier on the show, just speaking of injuries, that Khalil Mack is going to miss some time. Official now that the Chargers are putting him on the injured reserve list. Just wanted to make sure we got that out there before we get out of here today. Thanks for hanging out with us. It's been a fun 2 hours. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. But for now, we're going to step aside. Coming up next, Follow the Money is back. Mitch and Pauly on the desk. On today's show, Brad Powers delivers his top college football bets, and Sal Powell, NFL insider for ESPN, is going to join the program as well. Vito's son. Have fun. We'll talk to you tomorrow.